Three friends, one amazing series of YA novels, an insatiable thirst to relive the glory that is K.A. Applegate's literary masterpiece. This is Fanimail, the Dork-Bajir Chronicles.
Hello and welcome to The Speaking Tree, a Dork-Bajir podcast where we read through the Animorph series one book at a time, then talk about it every week. Today we'll be taking a deeper dive into Visser, the book we read last week. My name is Mikael, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Brayden.
I'm a little cockney boy today.
Yeah, Brayden will not be joining us today because his prison gout is acting up.
Yeah.
Is that a good one? No, what's a better one?
I was going to say he got to an airport and they realized that they couldn't let him leave. So he's missing out this week, unfortunately.
Wasn't that a Tom Hanks movie?
Yeah, I think, wasn't he stuck in Japan or something? He couldn't fly back.
Yeah, the Terminal Man. I don't know, that's a Michael Crichton.
Oh, no, that's a different movie where he lives in the terminal and starts to work in the terminal.
That's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
I thought you meant Lost in Translation. Was that Tom Hanks or was that Bill Murray? I get them confused.
I have no idea.
Oh, man. People are just screaming at me right now.
Let's jump into some.
Fanimail! Ooh, yeah! Fanimail! Ooh, yeah!
Our first piece of fan mail comes from @LegoRats, who says, Animorphs is a long series, and there are a lot of filler books in the second half, most of which I still like. Have you ever seen an abbreviated reading list, like what books to read if you want the best story and none of the filler episodes? And this was from a while ago, so if you probably might have seen it, but there actually is a spreadsheet out there that a very industrious fan made, and it's just a Google Doc, basically. So if you look in the show notes for this episode, you can find a link to that tweet, which has a link to the spreadsheet, and they've categorized the books as must read, can skip, maybe better to skip, and just don't. And there's also blocked out spoilers if you you want to read summaries, but they've blocked out all the spoilers, so then you can unblock them. Anyways, it's a very well done spreadsheet. I recommend you check it out if you're rereading.
There's only 3 books that are in the red just don't category.
Take a guess. Wait, I didn't look, but let me guess.
Okay.
Alternomorphs, both of them.
Yes.
And the starfish one.
No, Megamorphs number 2 in the Time of Dinosaurs.
Get out. That one's not that bad.
It's because this one screws with continuity and the rules of morphing for the sake of plot. It is referenced in the book immediately afterwards, number 19, The Departure, because Cassie has the nightmare about being a T-Rex and ripping apart a dinosaur.
Yeah, that would make no sense if you didn't know Megamorphs 2 existed.
For the starfish one, the author of this spreadsheet says, this one is dumb. So dumb. But I can't make it red because of Rachel's epiphanies about herself.
Get out. Fucking the character development in that is garbage.
They did make number 34, the prophecy, with the, let's just put your essence into somebody else. And that's not like a Yeerk host at all. They made that one a green one.
I think that was still cool. We could debate this. I'm sure this guy has seen a lot of debate.
The 45 to the end are all green. You absolutely have to.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Ugh.
Anyways, check that out if you're interested. Our next piece of fan mail comes from classic Fanimail Fanimorph superfan at Movie Polls. When it's past 5 a.m. and a new Dork-Bajir episode has been released, you stay up and listen to it. That's goddamn right, you listen to it. The Andalite Chronicles by the Dork-Bajir Chronicles. This was a while ago. But it just goes to show how long Movie Poll's been around. So shout out to that guy or gal.
They also have a tweet quoted in this thread about going off the TV show and what I remember from old interviews. Taxon is tax on, and Aloran is Aloran.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. That's we got an almost expert who can verify some of the pronunciations.
Yeah, it's actually wild how many people are more qualified to be doing this podcast than we are.
Yeah, no. I should not have started out calling myself the expert because I'm really not.
Well, you're the expert in the 3 of us.
In the 3 of us, yeah, there's not a lot of competition, if I'm being honest.
Well, okay, I don't read as fast as you, but...
I am a very fast reader. I also just remember really stupid minutia about the different books. Like, oh, where's the book that Cassie gives Jake a blowjob? And I was like, oh, well, that's fanfic number 37.
Listen, Tessa, Brayden's not here. We can leave that kind of humor behind and get into the real.
Also, we should say at the top of the episode that this is episode 100. Woo!
That's right. Not including bonus episodes. We've now done 100 episodes of our regular show, which actually blows every other Animorph podcast out of the water. That's right. If you're looking for filler with little to no substance, we have a huge back catalog.
Yeah, if you're just getting into us and you think, oh, these two cats sound cool, well, guess what? We've got a whole other cat in all the other episodes.
Well, here's a challenge. Here's a challenge for any other superfan. Make a spreadsheet like the critical or non-critical Animorph books, except for our show.
Oh, the critical or non-critical Animorphs episodes.
Fanimorphs episodes that deliver Fanimorphs canon.
All of the TV show episodes.
Live from the Gardens.
Are not
I was going to say Live from the Gardens is all
No, Live
bad.
from the Gardens is necessary because it builds the base about why we all know that you're an animal sex pervert. The only TV show episode that I can think of that's really important is the one that we go in depth about our favorite types of crackers.
This is okay. Let's jump into our first segment.
Animorphs.
So, in this segment, we diagnose an issue in the book and try to find a more creative and effective solution. So, normally we use all the same moral and sort of stealth and, black and white rules that the Animorphs use. But because the protagonist was a Yeerk in Visser, the normal rules do not apply.
Bombs!
However, obviously, we also don't have morphing powers, right?
Yeah. But you do have infestation powers, which, to be honest,
Yes.
is a little bit like morphing.
Sure. There's an argument to be made there. So just to be clear, you can kill people. You are a badass, relatively immoral Yeerk. AKA, you're basically, oh my god, I forgot her name. Eva. Well, no.
No,
you're
she's not
Visser
Eva
one.
yet.
You're,
Idris?
what's the name? Idris?
Edris 562.
Okay. Let's just shorten it to Edris for the
Edris.
sake of this.
I just got really scared that Edris was the name of her partner. The little, normie guy who wanted to be human.
Who was that? What's the name of that guy?
Ah,
Who cares?
Josh. Who cares?
Minion number 1. Okay. So, the question is, in a world where memory dumps exist, how would you have hid the fact that you were trying to protect 2 humans from the invasion? So, we have not reached the point of the court case yet. We're, preparing like Edris was when she first arrived. Except we've gone through everything she's gone through so far, and we're now at the point where she knows she's going to have a kid, or 2 kids, I guess. So now she's got to start thinking about how to protect these kids. So let's say we're, not that it really matters, but 6 weeks into a pregnancy, which is usually when you can kind of tell that you're pregnant. How do we do this? The only caveat that I think is really important is this can have involved forethought from before the pregnancy.
Yeah, because before the pregnancy, you're all high up on living life as a human. Oh my god, sex is great. Yeerk sex sucks so bad. And yeah, so then bump, now you're pregnant. Okay, how do you protect them?
Right. And the key thing is you already know about memory dumps. So you know that your memory could be accessed to find out that you're trying to protect these people. Which, I mean, is sort of what we found out in Visser, right? So how do we make it so that that's not going to happen?
I think we should have 2 separate things. Are we going to be, is this protecting your mind from someone literally jumping into it because you didn't do memory dumps? Or doing the memory dumps to hide the kids so that there's no reason for them to go into your mind?
Okay, no, it's not to stop someone from doing the memory dump. It's to make it look like if someone were to jump into your mind or you had to do a memory dump, you
Nothing
wouldn't
would
be doing
suspect.
things that would imply that you would save these 2 humans.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So it can involve forethought, but as soon as 6 weeks pregnant, then you can start acting in whatever way. It's kind of weird too because the Council of 13 seems to be grossed out that she even got pregnant.
Yeah, no, they think that alien sex is really nasty. I mean, to be fair, humans call it doing the nasty. So I can
You
see
call
it.
it that. So.
What? No, I don't.
Humans.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I wonder if Dork-Bajir sex is just like this fucking vicious, painful thing.
No, they probably do it like porcupines, where they just go tails up and they go ass to ass.
Oh, God.
And they just pass eggs back and forth between their cloacas.
Cool. Okay. So I think one of the things we have to maybe do as a preamble is like, how does accessing your memory and how do memory dumps work?
Yeah.
It's pretty heavily implied in the book that it's like a perfect science where like there's nothing you can do to, like you can't just like think really hard and change your memories, right?
Maybe Yeerk's, maybe it's not about the technology, maybe it's about Yeerk memories. Maybe Yeerks have perfect recall, which is something that humans don't have. It wouldn't really make sense because they have tiny little sluggy brains, but I don't know.
Well, maybe they're not even carbon based. We don't know.
Oh, we don't know. They're just made of silicon. They're just all a bunch of dicks. Silicone dildos.
Is Brayden like texting you these jokes or what?
I don't know. I feel like his soul has possessed me. It's because we used to live together. I like know what he would say in this moment.
You're just trying to fill in for him? Okay. So one of my questions, like just in trying to figure out how this works, is like, are the memories perfect? And I think if you don't try to affect your memories, you probably can't, right? Like if you didn't know someone was going to access your memories later, you wouldn't do anything like psychologically to stop that from happening, like to stop those memories from happening.
I think I got the sense that it's almost like reliving it, which is different than what happens to, I mean, at least to me, when I remember something. Like it felt a lot more like a pensive situation from Harry Potter, where you're reliving it with a crystal clear quality and everything else. But I still think that means if you were planning on obfuscating something, you could, right? Like if you, like, okay, say you had an idea of what you wanted to name the kids and you wrote it down, but you were thinking about something else as you were doing that, right? Like if you have your surface thoughts be really strong in some other thing.
So that raises another question, and maybe you could remember some evidence from the book for this, but like, does the person looking at your memory know your feelings? I
think they do, because I think I remember who's the mentor guy? Gareth?
Yeah, Garoff.
Geralt, of Rivia.
It's fantasy Gareth, basically.
I think he would, I think he was able to see that she was so happy to look at her kids and like, oh my God, I'm so grossed out.
Yeah. Like, but was he observing that externally, or was he like feeling it because it was in her memory?
Now that's an interesting thing. Realistically, if you were to jump into somebody else's mind, he would be sharing her body. But in the book, we know that it was like she was in her body and it was like she saw Geralt just sitting there beside her in the car.
I'm not joking. It actually is Garoff.
Okay, Garoff.
Okay. But yeah, you're right. It's actually more akin to time travel than it is to like memory experience.
So I think you're onto something. I think they can only see based on your reactions, which is crazy to me because in your memory, you don't remember what you looked like on the outside. How can somebody else point themselves there and be viewing your memory from a different perspective?
Well, that's a good question too, because like maybe the Garoff we saw sitting there was just like a representation to make the conversation easier and like easier to visualize for us.
Oh, maybe it's like a fail-safe projection so that you remember that you are currently in a memory.
Right, but in actuality, he's seeing everything through the eyes of...
From her eyes.
Yourself, yeah. Is that true? Like, we should decide on that.
I think that's fair. I think he would be... It makes more sense to me if he's inhabiting her body and seeing everything from her eyes. But it also makes sense to me that... Because... I don't think Yeerk memory is perfect. Like she was able to remember like the specific conversations that she had with the human and all of this stuff. But I think the only things that you can really tell, or the only things you'd be able to remember, are the most important things. Like this conversation was very important to Edris that she's having with this human about, okay, yeah, let's fall into humanity. But if there was something else going on, right? Like if Edris was also thinking about, man, this human body has to shit, I don't think that would come up.
Okay, so that brings up a point that I had been kind of like throwing back and forth, which is just like, even though obviously we know from reading the book that the science can access any point in your life and look at it, right? And didn't they say that she actually did do a memory dump a year later?
It was the reason why they went into her mind is because there was a year where she wasn't journaling. So they were like, we got to go in and see what happened.
Right. So that means presumably when the was it twins or was it one?
It was twins.
Another?
No, it was twins.
Okay, so presumably
it was only a year, Mikael. It's not enough time for a human body to gestate more than one kid, more than one birth.
They would have known that she had kids if she had it during the reporting period.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was when she next did a memory dump. I think it was just about a specific sanitized section and not about these secret children.
So that's actually, so Brayden did leave a note here, his only note, that says, fudge the information. Fudge the written data records. So like things like registering their birth, their names, their social insurance numbers, all that stuff, fudge it. So that, and obviously I'm sure they could do that. That's pretty easy. Like humans can do that. I'm sure a fucking Yeerk could do that.
Oh, the data? Yeah.
The information about these kids. So like that's one part of it, I think. That's obviously not going to be enough to like stop them from figuring out that she cared about them. But I do also think that like the reverse is also true. Like what if you took a fuckload of notes that were just like human gestation experiment day 1? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of doing it. And you fake it that way because then when they access your memories or you do a memory dump, that is still there. And you could turn on the science brain and be very analytical and be thinking and excited about this experiment, about what's going to be happening. Like, what would maybe be thinking like, oh, what would a Yeerk do to a brand new baby? How much could they control? How much could they morph this mind? Like,
yeah, taking like hypotheses and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of that year, is like she gave them up for adoption. Is that what happened in the books?
At the end of that year, they left with, they were abandoned at the hospital.
Okay, so essentially, okay.
Yeah, so essentially given up for adoption.
Yeah, I think the best route is to make it look like you didn't care about the kids at all. So one of those things could obviously be like evidence is we left them, right? Like we didn't care about them enough to keep them. But also, in order to make it so that, because obviously you do care about them, so in order to stay protecting them, you can make it way harder for the Yeerks to track them later, because Visser 3 found
one of those little boys. He did, however, have the father Yeerk human, so perhaps that's how he was able to, maybe that helped him somehow? Probably not.
Okay, so
what actually happened was because it wasn't what you need to do is if you need to put them up for adoption intentionally. Don't just abandon them at the hospital. Put them up for a closed adoption, and that makes it way harder for Visser 3's minions to do any PI stuff.
Sorry, why would that be harder?
Because protection of the child, I think, right?
Well, I think having a paper trail, whether it's private or not, like the Yeerks aren't going to care that it's illegal to look at that information, right?
Not that it's illegal, but that it's guarded more carefully, right? In case these children just say something like, "Oh, you know, the dad's a abusive piece of shit who wants to use these kids as coke bags or something," and then they'll work harder to hide them, right?
But doesn't that just like create a record that ties those children to Edris? Because the way they did it is like
maybe
they don't know who the hospital has no information of who the parents are, so they kind of have to make up their own information. I guess that's true. Those kids probably would have been all their shit would have been fudged except for their birthdays, probably. What you
can do is because you are a Yeerk who's being a human and everybody on the Council of 13 is not infesting a human, you can try and use human tricks and tactics to try to hide the kids too, right? Like if you create your own false identity to go like a second one that you don't tell the High Council, so when you give birth, that's the only paper trail that it leads to.
But they can access your memories.
Yeah, but they won't care about this, about a secret identity, right? Like if you don't, like, I feel like it will be like such a minute detail that they won't care about it. You know what I mean? Unless their attention's been brought to it. If we go with the whole idea that, okay, you're raising these kids as an experiment, and,
Then you wouldn't have to adopt them out at all, though.
What if you...
It's tough, right?
It's really tough. I'm trying to see if you can fake like a miscarriage or something.
Dark, but yeah. I see. The problem is anything you experience can be revisited. So any like obvious fakery will be pointed out. So I think the opposite is maybe what should be done. Instead of doing a few very suspicious things, just overwhelm the year with not suspicious things.
That's fair. I like that.
Do like way more of the science stuff, way more observational stuff, which is what she was supposed to be doing anyways, right? So at least that's convincing. And then giving them up for adoption could just be like, well, I don't need them anymore because I can't raise them their whole life. I have other shit to do, even though the reason was obviously more complicated than that. So this is assuming that they can't like sift through her brain at any given moment, but can just kind of like get surface level stuff. I think they talk about that a bit, don't they?
Well, I mean, you have to willingly accept somebody ruffling through your brain. And Garoth, like, skipped 6 months from now, 2 months from now, blah, blah, blah. So he obviously knew specifically what he was looking for because he had his suspicions. So I'm thinking if you hide the information about how to actually contact these kids in the unsuspicious memories, then that's something that they will just gloss over. Like, oh, you were grocery shopping. That's a boring human thing to do. But that's when you met with the adoption lady or something.
As sad as it is, too, like treating your kid like a subject instead of your kid would maybe help.
And that would definitely help. But the thing is, too, is that you're pregnant this whole time. So I think what the experiment should be is is it possible to live as a Yeerk inside a pregnant alien to carry out babies to term, and then maybe after she gives birth, that's when you fake that you realize, oh no, I don't have any actual Yeerks with me. I can't do the experiment with what would a Yeerk do to a newborn baby. Well, let's crash and burn this one.
Wasn't that her fault though? Because she like specifically wasn't calling the fleet. Because if she's like, oh, there's no other Yeerks, so it's like, well, that was your responsibility to get Yeerks here. So they'd be like, why didn't you just call the Yeerks?
Perhaps you could play up the dumbassery? Like, oh, I made a mistake. I didn't call my boss for reinforcements until it was too late. Oh. That wouldn't work. They'd kill her.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like something that would work. They don't seem to have much patience for that kind of thing.
No.
Okay. So I think we have some key pieces here. So overwhelming is, I think, important. Falsifying, because part of this is like making sure they can't find the kids later.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, because otherwise they'll be like, oh, let's see what your experiments are doing now. And then you have Visser 3 having a 7-year-old threaten suicide.
Actually, that's interesting then. How did Visser 3 know that was her kid? Because the kid would have no memory of it.
I think really it's he went to the hospital. He found out the name of the hospital from the homeless guy.
From like 1980 or whatever it was.
And then tracked them down. I mean, the 1980s were all about a paper trail, man.
Is that something the 80s are known for? Paper trails?
I mean, it was before the internet really took off, so I think so.
You mean literally using paper to track
literally using paper to track everything because they don't have any other options.
Okay, the only way I could see it maybe making sense, like, obviously this is her kid, is that later she did shit that was recorded in the memory dumps that, even though it wasn't overtly being like, that's my child, but maybe like every 6 months you like check in on this one random person, right? And like, that's not something that you would just immediately pick up on if you were glancing through the memory dumps, but maybe Visser 3 got a bunch of Taxons to like watch every single minute of the memory dump and write down any patterns.
You're trying to figure out how Visser 3 found out about the children?
So that we can avoid it.
I literally just think a lot of it was luck because she didn't have a solid plan, and also she had the partner who, had bits of Yeerk stuck inside his human brain as he died. Like, we don't have a partner in this scenario, right? We're just doing it with our own self.
No, you have the partner.
Huh?
Well, how else would you have the kid?
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Tessa, you got a lot to learn.
I do. I just don't know how life works, Mikael.
Okay. I think moving forward from the moment where she's pregnant, like the way she thinks about the kids and outwardly acts about the kids needs to be much more designed, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, no, it has to be a lot more calculated for sure.
Yeah, and if your partner is like, I want to be a human, you must be like, yeah, it's fucked.
Yeah.
And then maybe like, I don't know how you could communicate with him that it's not fucked.
Write it on a piece of paper in
No,
English,
that wouldn't work.
which is an alien language to all these Yeerks who have not inhabited a human.
Yeah, but literally anyone after the invasion starts could read it and know what it says, right?
Yeah, but they won't. Will they be looking for that? If you're saying out loud, you disgust me, you're disgusting, you're my minion, you're not going to be a human, get out of here. Now you're sent to the pool forever.
How about this? You have a piece of paper in front of you, and you're talking to your partner, and you're telling him like, don't treat these as if they're your actual children. But while you're looking at him, you're writing like all of this is a lie on the paper.
Yeah,
like,
and you're holding it so that you don't see it, or you've already like printed it out or something, so they're only going to skip to this cool conversation and not you fucking around on a Word document. So then, yeah, so you have this conversation where they're like, I want to be human, and you're like, you disgust me, you're awful, don't do it. And then you hold up your little sign being like, yo.
Well, you don't hold it up, but I get what you're saying, yeah. I think also it would be critical for you to have a similar conversation like that many times without you writing anything.
Yes.
Because that way when they see it, it's like, okay, another one of these, skip over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. These are all really good. These are all really good.
We would be really good
Unfortunately,
secret Yeerks.
it does rely on one aspect of the technology, which is that the observer is not living every single piece of your brain, just like the surface level stuff and viewing your actions. Because if they can see everything, there's no answer to this.
There's no answer to this,
Right.
which would be, and I think that there is a way, because she was still able to. I mean, Gareth like got her off the hook and was like, "Oh, I see. You just pretended to be in love with the babies because of the human emotions."
Right.
And she was like, "No, yes, that's exactly it. I never loved them."
Right. So he must not be able to. I mean, because the thing is, after that year, when she started making regular dumps, she obviously still cared about those kids. But anyone, if they could see every aspect of her personality,
they would have known, because it would have oozed out. Because as soon as you become a parent, it just oozes out of every single pore of you.
So this is what I have, and I don't think it's too bad. So when the year starts, and obviously you're intentionally, you know that you're going to have to be making memory dumps.
Yep.
But like just on the off chance that no one cares, you're not going to make a memory dump because this is pretty risky. However, we know as the audience that years later they will view this memory again.
Okay, so wait. I didn't even think about that. Why don't you just make memory dumps and just while you make the memory dump, don't think about the kids or the fact that you're pregnant and they will never find out?
See, that's a much better plan, is just do all this stuff that we're about to list.
Still do
while making the memory dumps.
Just in
because
case.
It's way less suspicious.
Way less suspicious. But also with the memory dumps, the thing that's difficult is that you cannot look at yourself in a mirror or like be self-conscious about your pregnancy belly or any of that, because then they'll be like, oh, what's up?
Well,
because in the memory dumps, that can still be part of your plan, is that, oh, I'm raising these two children to term just to see what it does.
Also, you could make the argument, because like she seems to be able to tell the Council of 13 things about humans that they're like subtle things about humans, and they're like, oh, okay. Like you could just say like all gestating females, humans, like have to deal with an influx of hormones and whatever other things, like, which is obviously only partly true for in real life. But I mean, I feel like they would buy that, and then they could also look up, if they had to or wanted to, they could look up evidence of that in like popular media.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of that, right?
All those episodes of those pregnancy episodes of Friends was happening right in the 90s when Phoebe gave birth to her brother's triplets.
Yeah, admittedly, that would be super uncomfortable.
That would be one of the ones that they find, and they're just like, oh, well, alien sex sucks.
Yeah.
Yeerks do it right, because you die immediately after.
Do you think that Garoff watched her bone?
No, he definitely skipped over the boning part, because we did not hear any word of it in the book. I feel like he wanted to, but he was a professional.
Profresh. Okay.
Professional.
So the plan is, do make the memory dump, but whenever you have feelings or like feel like you're going to act in some way that will like clearly show that you care about the child, overwhelm the dump with information. So immediately start taking notes in an observation or making a log or...
Sorry, caveat, not the dump, but your own real life memory in case you were to get memory scanned.
Well, no, because I think we agreed that you should be making the memory dumps.
You should still be
anyways.
making the memory dumps, but you can choose what kind of memory to make the memory dumps around, right? So you could just pick the unemotional parts already.
No, I don't think that's how it works. From my understanding is you dump a year at a time and it's everything.
No, you don't dump a year at a time because they were reviewing the dumps, and they just reviewed the dump that she made when she first landed on the planet in all the sand, and there was the war, right? That was its own little dump, was that moment.
Well, don't you think that was an edited dump? Okay, this is something we need to agree on too then, because like, if that's the case, if you pick and choose and that's all you're expected to do when you're reporting, then this whole thing is moot. Just make the memory dumps and make them of moments when you're not acting suspicious, right? There must be a reason other than that. I think it's
I'm thinking they're going to want to review your memory. I'm thinking they're going to want to scrub your memory, like Geralt just climbing all in there, because they're going to be so freaked out why you would want to get alien pregnant.
Right, but my point is, like, I don't think that you, as a subordinate, you have a choice of what you dump. I think you dump everything as a record.
It's definitely less than a year, though. I think it's every couple of months. You just do like here's all the important stuff, like a report.
But what would be the point of doing the dump if you're making the report anyways?
No, that's what I mean, is that the dump is the report. It's not like, here's a year of information. I think it's like, here's this moment, blah, blah.
That makes no sense, though.
But then they're going to have to, like, watch you use the bathroom all the time.
Right, but then if your dump was only relevant information, then they have to watch you do an experiment and do all this shit. All they need is a piece of paper that wrote, like, hey, Yeerks can't go in baby cows. Tried it.
Tried it, failed.
Right? I think the point of the memory dump is like a oversight thing, so that like the people who are your boss can basically, it's like a surveillance camera on you at all times.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense, but I feel like, we already know that Andalites don't use paper. Why would the Yeerks, who stole most of their technology from the Andalites?
Why would they use paper?
No, I'm pretty sure they don't, because you remember how, like, marveled that Axe was at a book? He's like, jeepers, when you look for information, you gotta, like, beep up the data pad, and it takes forever to load, whereas a book...
What does any of this have to do with paper?
Well, no, I'm just thinking that, like, the Yeerks, instead of just writing out a paper report, okay, tried to infest baby cows, it didn't work, they would do a memory dump, and that's their version of journaling. It's like, okay, here's a half-hour memory dump of me trying to get my slug body into a baby cow, me, like, smushing a slug against a baby cow's ear.
Oh my god, I'm not suggesting that they're like with calligraphy pens on papyrus paper. Like, I'm saying they literally type a sentence
out. There's no kind of memo. It's just I'm saying there's no memo. The only kind of documentation the Yeerks have are memory dumps.
That can't be true, because then there's no way that they could like program a ship. There's no way they could navigate.
You program a ship with love.
Yeah, it's like, I remember a dream I had about flying a ship.
And boom, now we're the stars.
They definitely, the main source of their record keeping cannot be memory dumps. I think it's just an oversight thing, so that like, if something like this happens, we can go back in time and look and see what the fuck. It's the same thing like if someone robs you, that's why you have a 24-hour surveillance. It's like, you don't just turn the camera on when you think there might be a robber there.
Oh yeah, speaking of, I'm gonna return your PS4 really soon.
What?
Moving right along. Okay, I'm just thinking, like, it would be funny if this, like, I think that's a plausible explanation, is that their only form of communication is, like, holograms and memory dumps. And it's why that they're not the conquering heroes at the end. That's why they got so stuck up on humanity, is because we have so many magazines, and they're just like, what the fuck?
I think there's a very long essay that could be written about that, because like, arguably they had zero to no technology before the Andalites got there, but the Andalites were so far past using, paper. They were still using like written reports on computers, but like, they were so much like thought speak and all that stuff.
I think they're thought speak reports, yeah. It's all audio-visual medium, baby!
But you're saying, okay, let's get real here. No matter how advanced your technology is, it still makes more sense to look at a spreadsheet than have a spreadsheet read to you.
Or I'm thinking like if it's a spreadsheet that's in like a hologram, which is its own kind of crazy thing. It's like how there's no paper.
I mean, that's just a written thing that's floating in the air.
There's no paper in Star Wars until episode 8.
Books are art. There's no paper in Star Wars.
There's no paper in Star Wars, and I think that there's no paper in space, period. Maybe it just combusts as soon as it gets out of the Earth's atmosphere. Have we experimented? Can we get NASA on the line?
Okay, let's fucking filter this back to what we were doing.
Okay, yeah, the Yeerks had no technology, and then boom, Andalite technology, so they just skipped over, like, to the Yeerks, there is no such thing as steampunk. That's so sad.
Let's assume that that's a question we can't answer right now.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, so I think we can distill our solution down into still make the dumps because it's too suspicious not to.
It's too suspicious not to. But if they want more information about, okay, literally, why are you having alien babies in your body? You overwhelm the memory with information, like you're doing big ups on the science report.
Okay, the next thing you would do, and this is subtle and maybe not as important, but could still help you in the future, is like falsify any information you can about the kids.
And this would be your Visser 3 clause.
This is the Visser 3 clause, yeah. The last thing, not the last thing, I guess, but a critical thing is don't act like you're excited to have the kids and don't act like you love the kids when they are born. That's probably the hardest one.
That's going to be the hardest one.
Yeah, and there's some argument to be made for like, oh, there's hormones and like, what's that one? Oxytocin is like making me act like I love these kids. But
there's
I think that can only
force
go so
stronger
far.
on Earth than a mother's love. Just like if you accidentally do feel a little bit for the kids, then just hurry out to the gift shop and buy a couple of tea cozies that have that phrase on them, so that when the Council of 13 calls you on your bullshit, you can hand those out to everybody and be like, I mean, you see, chemicals made me do it.
Sure. I mean, we know the chemical thing is a real thing. But anyways, I think also an important one so that you and your partner are on the same page is like the secret notes thing. So notes, but during moments that happen often. So even if you're just like, looks like you're washing dishes, but actually you're looking at him and talking or watching TV or something, and then you're writing a note out, and then you pass it to him without acting like you're actually doing that.
Or not even passing to him, but like holding it to your chest so he can read it, and people who are inhabiting your memories looking through your eyes can't.
One thing we didn't consider with that particular one, though, is that they'll access his memories.
Oh, shit. Well, at the end of the year, you kill him.
Dark, but not against the rules.
Because he especially, you don't have to if he's been playing along, but if he plays like in the book where he's falling in love with being a human, I don't think these kinds of notes are going to dissuade him. I think he's still going to try to steal the babies. So you plan for that, you kill him, which will also prove to the High Council that you aren't falling in love with being a human, like your partner clearly was, because look, you killed him and you boned that guy. What?
You killed and you boned? How this be?
But, different, reverse order. You boned and then you killed.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it would have to be reverse to get the sperm out. Anyways, okay, I think that's the best we can probably do with the information we do have. I would love to hear other people's theories about this because there's a lot of ins and outs, just overall.
That was really fun. That was one of my favorite, Animorphs ZR things, I think. And that's because we could end it with a murder. Animorphs don't murder enough people.
Against the rules, y'all. Speaking of rules, let's move on to our next segment.
Everyday Animorphs. Everyday now.
In this segment, we try to tackle an everyday situation that did or might have happened in this book. All the normal rules of being a Yeerk apply. Nothing is off limits unless it puts the Yeerk race at risk. Our question is, how would you deal with your host and yourself? Because I think that's what happened. The host and the Yeerk fell in love with another host and the Yeerk inside of it. So the caveats are, there's no limit. Like, we're not necessarily dealing with these specific, not Amy and whatever Hildy his name was. We don't have to pick them. It doesn't even have to be humans.
It could be A cow and a deer.
Well, I don't know if they would fall in love as a cow and a deer.
They might. You don't know.
Actually, this series is all about getting freaky with other species, so who knows?
It really is. Marco and Axe, anybody.
The end goal should be you need to preserve the life of the host bodies. So you can't just like abandon them at the last second. You need to like find a way to be together. This is not really an everyday situation, but there was not a whole lot of everyday situations in Visser. So
aside from like, what would you do if you were driving behind a semi-truck and then all of a sudden your left eye closed? Like,
right. Exactly.
That was the only other one we went with, but because Brayden doesn't drive, he's no longer allowed. So,
so just to dovetail off the end goal of the host bodies staying alive, if you don't protect the bodies, they will be killed by the Yeerks.
They are going to be they will die violently at an undetermined point in time in the future.
Exactly.
Oh, Mikael, do you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. So what I thought was, what if you used what technology you had, and you must have access to some technology, and know of it, but try to figure out how to cryogenically freeze beings. Now, that's a big ask, but it's not a big ask if the laws of ethics in the science community don't affect you at all. So, like, you can try shit on complex mammals all the time. The only caveat, or the only, like, wrench in that plan is that you can't try it on Yeerks inside of these bodies, because that would kill Yeerk, and that's against the rules.
You just basically want to make your human hosts into Venber. Which is the Frosty Boys from book 25.
Oh, no, I remember, but
I'm just saying to prove to all the listeners that I'm still the expert here, because I know the weird little facts about the books.
Okay, so once I figure out the freezing thing, we freeze our host bodies, then we exit them. Oh, right, so I guess you wouldn't need to know if it could freeze a Yeerk, but we'll exit the bodies, take on other bodies, and like tuck these guys away, and then once in a while, we'll just sneak back into the freezers, thaw out, fuck, and then freeze again. And just do that whenever you want. And you got to think, that's an ideal life for the people stuck in the freezer.
I mean, but they don't get to eat, Mikael. They just sleep and then they bone. When you're cold, God, the chafing. Also, I think we are assuming that, I think all of us here, just reading the notes, all of us are assuming that the hosts are human. And I'm just going to say that makes the most sense because I don't see Dork-Bajir having the technology to freeze.
I mean, yeah. I mean, humans don't either, although it's definitely something we've thought about.
They definitely did in the 90s. They got rid of it after 2012, but they definitely had it in the 90s.
Okay. So you could just do that forever until whatever threat it was that was threatening the bodies passes. Or, I mean, you could just do it forever. Like, I think if the cryogenic science was good enough and like they couldn't remember all the time that they were frozen for, because that would be insane if they could remember like being frozen for that long.
That would be awful.
Yeah, but basically for the host, it's just like wake up, fucking have a hot toddy and fuck.
I mean, yeah, sounds like the ideal life. All right. I gotta say the stakes are really high for this one. I would fake the host's death so that they could escape, leave it all behind, cut the credit cards, run off into the woods, and we'd have a little shack hidden out there that the hosts could live in. Because they can't go free, obviously, because they know about the Yeerks, and you always gotta remember that they will betray you at some point. So we would have to have other hosts to be the guards to keep the other hosts alive, and then if those Yeerks fell in love with, and the hosts fell in love too, then it would basically just be like a free host Yeerk orgy in the woods. And I don't have any other better plans than just building really tall fences around that.
I mean, I feel like the one thing that we don't hear enough about is like Yeerks abusing their hosts' bodies. And I think this is like leading into that quite a bit. I don't mean abusing them in a way to like permanently hurt them, but just like as a joke, like making them do funny stuff. And I think making them have an orgy in the woods in a shack falls under that category.
Yeah, that's not all of the hosts are going to be into the orgy is the thing.
But all the Yeerks would be, and so it wouldn't matter.
That just makes like uncomfortable, you know.
Do we have to have a conversation about consent in a world where they're being enslaved by aliens?
I mean, we should, but let's not.
Yeah, it's too complicated.
It's too complicated and fucking bums me out.
Brayden did leave some notes here. So Brayden's plan is start by infesting a White House intern and then work further and further up the chain until you're president, which, okay. I feel like that's a bigger ask than the freezing people. But,
yeah.
So wait until you're in complete control of the Yeerk invasion of Earth. Like, so as a position of power, yeah, you probably would.
Like Visser 1 style.
Visser 1, President 1. Eventually, secede all your command duties to subordinates and install yourself and your lover in the most remote location in the world, the Arctic Cap. Spend the rest of your lives taking reports, watching security footage, and boogie nightsing the hell out of our bits. Jesus Christ.
It's like he's here in the room with us. Brayden, I feel you. Boogie night sing.
We should both take turns saying Boogie Night Sing, but in a Brayden's voice.
Boogie night sing.
Boogie Night Sing.
Boogie night sing.
Can you do his Trump? He's got a good Trump voice. Boogie Night Sing. No, mine's not good.
Boogie night sing.
No, that's like the Shining anime voice.
Yeah, he has some funny voices. Anyway, we miss you, Brayden. Please come back to us. Let's go on to My Life, My Morph. My life, my morph.
So in this segment, we decide on what the best use of the main morph in this book would be in our own lives. So there was no morph. So, well, what would you do with a Yeerk morph in your own life? What would you do, Tessa?
I would infest a horse and win the
Gross.
Kentucky Derby.
Canonically, you are a horse girl, so...
Well, and also, canonically, Yeerks can infest horses. They should use this power more often. Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
Actually, couldn't they take cows, too, then?
Theoretically, they could, but perhaps not baby cows, and that was the problem that Idris was doing. It wasn't even a Yeerk. She just picked up a garden slug and was putting it on the cow's head and was surprised it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, do you think that the Yeerks feel any kind of kinship with, like, your garden variety banana slug?
I mean, if we know anything from the Edwards TV show, you remember Visser 3 eyeing up Jakey Boy as he chowed down on escargot?
Escargot.
I know, I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
So basically, you'd have to... The only way this would really work, for me anyways, is if the person I was infesting was willing.
Yeah, otherwise it gets gross. Like you just slip into your girlfriend's ear while she's sleeping beside you.
Hey, why's it gotta be gross like that? My thing is like selling my services. So if you're a Yeerk, you're basically like, you have the power to like control bodies and stuff. But I think the bigger power is actually like being able to read memories and skills.
You're basically in the Matrix. If you can contact the right people, you can download information into your brain.
Yeah, and if the memory dump thing, or not the memory dump, but like if you can like go back into a Yeerk and read their memories perfectly, their capacity for storing information is enormous, right? So why not pay an expert to let me into his head and be like, listen, you could kill me? Well, actually, no. How would that work? How would you convince somebody?
You just have to find some real like egghead who is a weirdo who's into the weird things. Like, hey, buddy, ever want to be touched by an alien?
I guess the easier answer is like find an already infested smart person, trade with that Yeerk for like 30 minutes, and then trade back.
But then they would know that you can morph because you're acting like a weird Yeerk.
What? Why would that be acting like
Because bro, can we swap Yeerks for a moment? That's weird. Let's do this in front of Visser 3.
You're not wrong, actually, because it's a Yeerk morph. I'm not actually a Yeerk.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I'm sure you could convince or sneak up.
But you could probably find some kind of professor who's, like, into it, right? Who's like, yeah, sure, I got tenure. Just sleeping? Okay, yeah, just like...
I wouldn't control his body, just his mind. Anyways, besides that, the point is, I would absorb a shitload of awesome information, and then I would just put an ad out on fucking Craigslist and be like, I will use your body to beat this test. I can write your MCATs for you, because I fucking have infested like 10 different doctors that know everything you already need to know, and it won't even look like cheating, because it'll be you,
your body doing it.
Fucking A.
No, that's sick. That's a sick idea. The only thing is, what if you morph back into your human body and your human brain cannot comprehend all the information that you have? It only exists in your Yeerk brain. Does that mean the information goes into Z space with your Yeerk little brain body?
Well, that's actually a really good question.
Right, because you would have to demorph in between. You only got 2 hours as a Yeerk.
But does that mean that... No, I guess memories don't. They're not in DNA.
You could put you could still put the ad out there, but you'd be basing off your shitty human memory of what you remember. So you would be a really shitty cheater.
Maybe I would just like morph a Yeerk and like hop in my buddy's luggage on short flights so I don't have to pay for a ticket.
Very short flights, otherwise you're perma-Yeerked and you're also all dried out. I think I would morph a Yeerk and just like wiggle in the bathtub. Just like, oh yeah.
You know, like you do.
Like you do!
Yeah.
You know how when you get like, when you're going to bed, and right before you go to bed, you rub lotion all over yourself because you live in a really dry part of the country and you need it. And then you slip under the sheets and you feel like a moist slug? Like, hell yeah.
No, I don't feel like that's... You need to go to a doctor like
That's not you. That's not everybody.
No, sorry. Okay, let's read Brayden's. I'm just going to read this. Well, why don't you read it? Because I read the last one.
Brayden would remove... I'm going to do it in my Brayden impersonation.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I would remove trouble points from my life and the lives of others using patsies. Basically, commit vigilante crimes, assassinations, etc. for fun and profit, using the bodies of people I despise, and have them sent to prison as I leave their body via explosive morphing.
I mean...
Gross.
The rules of morphing still apply. Brayden has never listened to the rules of morphing.
No, I think he's like,
upsetting.
You exit the ear, but you also start demorphing, Cassie style. So a little Yeerk head exits the ear canal of the human, and then it turns into a human head as you squirt out.
Oh, like that guy from Men in Black.
Yeah, so then you fall on the ground as a human because you're demorphing so fast.
I'm into that, actually. What did our fans have to say?
Our friends at home have said a couple of things. On the Twitter, movie polls would infest certain people. Yeah, I said it. There's a couple people here who would do some kind of therapeutic stuff, like at Nick Smith. There would be loads of therapeutic and diagnostic applications of being able to get information directly from a person's brain. Or at Wizard of Flame would become a psychologist because it would make psychoanalysis way easier. Greg Della Posta, my main man, he's gonna wriggle. That's what's up.
Just one word, wriggle, yeah.
Also, at Docs Martin would do a little Yeerk dance and immediately establish the nickname Jerk the Yeerk. And
okay.
A lot of other people were just like, let's look over at Washington, D.C. I'll start there. And we'll just infest powerful people.
Actually, there's a take on that on Facebook. Morale says, I'd infest someone horrible like Harvey Weinstein and then, as him, transfer all of his money to an account which my actual self would be able to access. Then I'd get Harvey, myself, into more trouble, get arrested, crawl out of his ear, morph something else, and escape. Boom. Pretty good, actually.
That's actually very sick.
Kevin also said, and this is a man after my own interest, use it to collect the full lifetime experiences of influential, creative, and intelligent people, then vicariously live as many lifetimes as I could in order to gain wisdom in my own life.
Aww.
Oh, here's a sweet one from Eula. Use it to get to know my husband better, with his permission, of course. He could do the same with me. Do you know how often I wish we were telepathic?
That's really cute.
That's pretty sweet, actually. It reminds me of a joke from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is like when the love interest has that gun that like makes it so you can understand that person's point of view. And she points that at all the guys and they're like, oh my God, like you're having a hard time. And then they're like, what if we used it on you? And she's like, it won't work. I'm already a woman. Anyways, I don't know why it's actually kind of problematic.
Sorry,
but anyway,
I blacked out while you were saying it. Now I don't know why, if I reacted appropriately. Anyway.
So next time, we'll be talking about Animorphs number 36, The Mutation. Brayden did write some predictions down here. Maybe I'll read them. This is Brayden's predictions. This is Brayden doing his own predictions.
The Animorphs are exposed to nuclear/similarly mutating material.
which alters their morphs, and perhaps themselves? Question mark. Kind of like maybe their dicks get bigger. Now that our spot-on Brayden impressions are done, Tessa, where can you find more of our stuff?
You can find more of our stuff on our podcast page at collectivelegacy.org or on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, or Facebook. I've got to say, remember to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from, because if I don't, then I will cleverly edit you out of my memory dump so that it's like you never existed at all.
Oh, rude. You can also show your support for our show by subscribing to our Patreon page, patreon.com/DORKBAJIR. We offer special bonuses for patrons, like access to our Discord server, Animorphs essays written by us, and much, much more.
I don't know why both of us want to go so nasally for Brayden. I don't know if it's because he is a little nasally in his real life, or if it's just because he's such a nerd that we just want to make fun of him.
I think it's also a pretty, cheap and easy way to make fun of anyone.
That's true. All right, we like to give a shout out to our patrons at the Dork-Bajir level or higher by giving them an Animorphs style title. Starting with...
A big shout out to Martha Urquhart, the only thing in my memory dump.
Anne-Marie Ellis, one of the two children that I'm going to immediately forget.
Nick, my partner who I had to shoot after he betrayed our race.
Anyanka, my co-conspirator in the Kentucky Derby Yeerk race that I'm definitely going to split those prize-winning roses with.
And Juvila, my husband with telepathy.
Shanna, cryogenics.
Michael Armenta, the other frozen host.
Oh! Mariah Wamby, Geralta Riviera.
Elemist, my saucy attitude in this outro.
Greg De La Posta, Mr. Wriggle.
Zachary Vaudo, Woodnothlet as a Yeerk.
Ace Chavez, first participant in the orgy in the woods.
Steam Driven, Brayden's true identity. For the Fan Wars, my name is Mikael, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Brayden. All of the sludge left in the Yeerk pool once the Yeerks are dead.
And this has been Fanimorphs, the Impressions of Brayden podcast.
I wish morphing power was real, because then we both just could have morphed Brayden and just had an all Brayden episode.
Yeah, I'm not putting my body through that.
What, you don't want to get a huge hog?
Brayden doesn't have a huge hog.
I mean...
Believe me.
Right. I forgot. You guys are close.
Well, he's my older brother. And my dad, I think, according to
you're
canon.
His dad a little bit, too.
Hi, hello, welcome to the ad for the show. I'm Mitch, the host of Wank Talk Radio. On this show, I talk to interesting people about interesting things. Do you need to know more than that? Okay, fine. Pretty much we'll talk about whatever my guest is interested in or passionate for. Sometimes it'll be silly, sometimes serious, sometimes a bit of both. Whatever the topic is, hopefully we'll find a way to make you that much more of an expert about it. You can find us at collectivelegacy.org, along with some other equally awesome shows on our network. New episodes of Wank Talk Radio are every Sunday and Thursday, wherever you find your podcasts. Let us know what you think on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wank Talk Radio. That's WENGH Talk Radio.
Wank Talk Radio.
Brought to you by
Collective Legacy,
a podcast network.